What's up? It's EK back with another rookie profile. This morning I'm doing the data profile for 2023 Ohio State wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Njigba is an interesting eval for me. Obviously, the kid was a baller in 2021. There is no denying that. That running with Olave and Wilson, he outproduced both of them. So common sense and Occam's razor says that if you outproduced two successful NFL wide receivers, you're probably going to be a successful NFL wide receiver. I think we need a little bit more nuance than that, but I will also preface this by saying I do think Jackson's going to be a good pass catcher in the NFL. I think he's probably going to be a good fantasy football asset because he's likely slotted for a high volume, Yak King type role, which is what he's good at. Not to limit him, he has other skills outside of that as well. But we'll talk about that more when we do his film profile. So today we're going to focus on the data. We're just going to look at the numbers and we're going to talk through what the numbers mean and what the gestalt of this data set says to me. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He's a junior, early declare. We love that for wide receivers. I don't care for running backs, but wide receivers, it's pretty important. 6'1", 200 pounds. That is alpha size. In his career, he has 110 receptions, 1,698 yards, and 10 touchdowns. In his best season, he has 95 receptions, 1,606 yards, 9 touchdowns. So you can see the juxtaposition there. All of his production is in that one season, but that's not to knock it. Coming in and dominating in the Big Ten as a 19 or 20-year-old kid is pretty impressive. So his best season stats are fairly nice. 26% dominator, but that is plenty good. And again, I don't care about dominator that much, but it does indicate what kind of role he had on his team. So it's interesting to look at in that manner. That is a little bit light for guys that went on to be NFL studs, but certainly in line with his teammates from Ohio State there. Actually, they both posted a best season that was significantly better than that in the 30%. As typically we do expect someone that's going to be a successful NFL receiver to do. However, you can give a break to someone on the market share numbers when, again, they're playing with two, probably future Pro Bowlers. 32% receiving yards market share. That's a nice number. It's a best season stat. It's a little bit lower than my cross section of studs, but it's in line with what guys like Chase and Jefferson did, who are also playing with other superstars. 27% receptions market share. Yeah, again, that's an excellent number. Not world beating, certainly, but in line with some other guys like Garrett Wilson, like Justin Jefferson. So nothing to get worried about. 3.25 receiving yards per team pass attempt, which for me is one of the most meaningful data points we look at. And that's a best season stat. And if you're not familiar with that, essentially for every passing play the team called, how many receiving yards did JSN get? 3.25 is a great number there. It's actually higher than Chase. It's lower than Downs. It's lower than Devonta Smith's best season, but his best season is historic. So it's right in line with, kind of what I want to see for a successful guy. It's not a world-beating number, but the difference in linearity in my profile from being successful and having very high numbers isn't always there, right? Like some of the best data profiles are like Bateman and Treylon Burks, who haven't necessarily worked out in the NFL yet, both of whom I like still. So efficiency numbers, I do like looking at this, but again, some of these are more interesting to talk about role and usage. 9.7 ADOT. So it does reflect somebody with a little bit shorter target area. I mean, honestly, Addison's only a little bit higher than that. Josh Downs is in that range, which makes sense. These are guys that really ate across the middle of the field, ate on short routes. To juxtapose this, Olave had a 15 ADOT, 15.17. Garrett Wilson had a 12.5. So, JSN was the short area of the field guy for these three wide receivers. And yet, his 15.4 yards per reception is still a pretty good number. So for a guy that was a short area guy, that's exceptional. Compared to some other short area guys recently, Elijah Moore, 12.5. Josh Downs, 13.7. So he exceeded expectations, certainly. I don't think I have a receiving yards over expected per attempt in my data set, but I would be interested to see that. And I think a lot of that you're going to see ties in with his yak, with his make you miss ability. So 1.90 yards per route run, that is an average number. Let's see, what did I do here for that? Is that an average number or is it a max? Just don't want to give you the wrong words. Yeah, that's an average number, the average YPR for his seasons. But again, that's his sophomore season plus 5 catches as a freshman or this year. 0.70 average EPA. Average, that's EPA per play, essentially. And let's take a quick look at that. It's a little bit lower of a number than you see from most of the studs. It actually matches Rondale Moore's number in the same stat, but it's significantly lower than like a Smith, a Chase, a Downs even. That's 0.86. But, this isn't a death sentence by any means. Wandale had 0.34. Justin Jefferson at 0.49. So certainly some superstars with these numbers, but it's not a feather in his cap by any means. It's a weaker number. It's elusive data. He had a best season, 10 first downs, which seems crazily low for me with what he did that year. Yeah, that's crazy. 19 missed forced tackles. That's a nice number. It's actually lower than I would have expected it to be for him, though. Like Garrett Wilson had 19. Guys like Smith, Addison, Chase all had more than 20. Not that missed forced tackles is a great predictor for the wide receiver position. It certainly is for running backs, but I like to look at it because, again, we learn more about a guy's role. 4.4 yards after catch per reception. Again, this is kind of a lower number than I would expect for JSN. It's a per reception number, too. We're not even talking about gross counting stats, but that is substantially lower than many of the wide receivers in this class and in the previous few classes. Interesting. And the 72.2 routes grade from PFF. Sometimes I'm not sure how they get their grades. I think they're actually calculated from stats because they don't all make sense. I mean, Jared Stearns had the best grade in last year's class. So, all right. So what's it all mean? What's the composite of these numbers mean to me? In my data model, JSN got about a 7 flat, depending upon which version of it I'm looking at. If I'm looking at, you get a 7.2. So my card's a little bit inaccurate, but 7.2, that is 23rd in this year and last year and next year's class, if I call them all together. So there's some guys from next year that are already ahead of him, like Harrison and Worthy. Again, part of this is I'm using some career average stats in my model. I find that improves the predictive capacity of it. If it's not all just best season stats, eliminates 1-year wonders and helps to eliminate guys that didn't do anything until their junior and senior year. Look, it's a good profile. There's really successful NFL wide receivers that scored in this area in my raw production model before I narrow down my data set. Let's look at a slightly bigger data set with my initial model. Yeah, all kinds of guys that went on. Actually, the average in my raw model, which my raw model JSN got about a 6.2. That's just below the average NFL wide receiver with the top 12 season, which was about 6.5. And then when I adjust for things like early declare and 40-yard dash, which I don't have in the CPI here, that number actually downward adjusts a little bit. But he had a higher score in the raw model than Odell Beckham, than Julio Jones, than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Also had a lower score than Sky Brown, Sky Moore, Diami Brown, Ty Montgomery. So he's certainly in a range where there is a ton of high-end NFL receivers, but not exactly in a range where you can look at the data and say, this guy is a lock. He's a can't miss prospect either. That said, I just look what he did in his best season, and in the film from that year, and I can't conceive of him not being successful in the NFL. And I think it's clear that the role he's going to get, which makes sense in the data and also on the film, is going to be an Amon-Ra St. Brown type role. It's going to be a DJ Moore type role. Again, DJ Moore excels in the slot but can play outside. I think you see that with JSN, and you'll see it when we look at the film, that he has the footwork, he has the releases, and he has the route running capacity to succeed on the outside. Yet what we don't have here in the CPI is athleticism numbers. I don't want to guess at them. I just want to get him out of the combine and then start talking about them. No one expects him to run, low 4.4s. Some people are calling for high 4.4s. Most people that have watched the film thinks he's going to run, mid 4.5s, which is fine for a slot receiver. Which there's some guys that play on the outside, like Allen Robinson, that ran those kind of numbers. I don't think he's dominant at the catch point the way Robinson is, but he certainly can play a Keenan Allen type role in the NFL. That might be a pretty good comp for him. Allen is prototypical size. He is a route technician, and he's not fast, but he's quick. And these are things that I think you can also say describe JSN. So that's it for this one. Please like, subscribe, follow us. We need your support. Let me know who else you want us to talk about. Let me know what you think about these draft profiles, and I'll see you on the next one.